Welcome back to CVM Live. It's now time for the major stories in detail. Scores of teachers failed to turn up for school island-wide on Monday following the government's failure to meet their wage demands. CVM Live's Khadija Thomas has this report.
The ease of traffic coming into the corporate area Monday morning was one of the first signs that something had gone awry. Students boarding buses to return home was the second sign that a number of schools were not in session as a result of the fallout in the wage negotiation between teachers and the government. It's the first day of the school week, and the students were seen walking idly by and outside school corridors, socializing with friends, as there was no one available to begin classes. Principal of Yalas High School, Mark Malabva, says the school was not adversely affected by the industrial action, as the ratio of teachers to students was average.
I have a full complement of students. It's a regular school day as far as the students are concerned. As far as teachers are concerned, I have 72% attendance. So roughly about 43 teachers are here of 59.
Meanwhile, in St. Elizabeth, Lacovia High School grade 11 students were upset that teachers did not show for classes.
Me have class tomorrow because I have SPA to go to. Me have SPA to go to.
Yeah, I have SPA to go, but I'm in a level grade.
I can have a strike and then we have CXC to go to. Oh, can I say that?
The principal, Hope Morgan, says they had to make provisions for students who turned out for school.
As administrators, we have to ensure the safety and security of our students. So we did our best in engaging them for the morning shift and the afternoon as far as it's possible.
Over at Windward Road Primary and Junior High, acting principal Noel Pennant says the teachers feel that they have been dealt with in a draconian manner.
Well, we will watch and see what happens based on today's activities. We'll see what the government says, or the Ministry of Education says is the directive, because as it is right now, some person should have been deployed within the school to fill the gaps where teachers have fallen short, but we have not seen any persons as yet.
Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
Treat the teachers fairly and with respect. That's the call from opposition spokesperson on education, Reverend Ronald Thwaites, who spoke out about the teacher sick-out. CVM Live's Joel Crosskill reports.
Spokesperson on education and training, Reverend Ronald Thwaites, expressed disappointment at the actions of government, which have led to the decision of teachers to stage a sick-out at a number of schools.
The sick-out is regrettable, and it was entirely avoidable. It has been brought about by stubbornness and disrespect on the part of government. This negotiation should have been completed sometime last year at latest, and it has been allowed to become protracted so that, in fact, people are against the wall, and when that happens, they do desperate things.
The impact of teachers' desperation has had a severe knock-on effect on the nation's students, who are currently preparing for GSAT examinations.
It's going to have considerable impact on the education system because this comes at a time of exam preparation and in some cases of actual testing. And it would have to be made up, which is always a difficulty because people make plans for the holidays, and these would have to be truncated to restore the appropriate days. It is totally unnecessary. It need not have happened.
The former education minister offered this advice to the government.
Sit down and resume negotiations in good faith and offer the teachers a wage settlement which is above likely inflation projections. They are reasonable people, and I believe that that would be the basis for acceptance. We need to get back to normalcy as quickly as possible.
Joel Crosskill, CVM Live.
And in a CVM exclusive update, the parent of one of the students caught on a viral video depicting an altercation between students of the Green Island High School in Hanover, and a bus conductor has come out expressing remorse for her son's actions. CVM Live's Nicole Wilson has this report.
Last Wednesday, students of the Green Island High School in Hanover were caught on video in a brawl with a bus conductor. Thus far, the police have 3 students in custody and are trying to locate 2 others. According to the mother of one of the students being sought, she has not seen him since Saturday and she expressed remorse for what happened.
I feel bad about it and I'm sorry for what happened because sometimes you grow your kids and when they're behind you, them get involved with other people who lead them astray and get them in problem. And sometimes when you talk, maybe people feel like you don't grow up a child properly or you don't talk to them and so forth, but you do.
She is, however, not taking the blame for what transpired, but instead is placing the blame on the company her son keeps at school.
I brought him up good, but since him start go to the, high school and school from school, them always are going to have people where them do follow.
The parent also says there are two sides to the story, and she shared what her son told her.
He told me that he did not lick the conductor since mommy I only fling the stone. I did not hit him. When I run across the road, I did not touch him. Them did already done whatever when the bus driving off.
Meanwhile, principal of the school, Maxine Evans, has called the incident extremely unfortunate.
These students are grade 11 students and for some reason may have got the impression that they are now at the end of their school life and therefore they should take matters into their own hands. It is quite unfortunate.
The school administration and police are still trying to ascertain what caused the altercation. Nicole Wilson, CVM Live.
Meanwhile, Green Island High School is among the schools affected by the low teacher turnout across the island today. Our news team was at the school, while Principal Maxine Evans encouraged students to use the time to catch up on their work and to read ahead.
I am asking you not to get yourselves involved in anything that is untoward at home or in your communities. Please stay clear of the roadways and make sure that you use these days wisely.
Referencing the happenings of last week, she told students that they are responsible for the development of their school.
There are students who are raising the flag of Green Island high. I want to ask each of you to consider your actions well to see whether it will bring the school's name into disrepute or it will be a part of the development process.
The appointment of another former military man to the post of police commissioner has not gone without public scrutiny. CVM's Nika Lewis took to the streets of the corporate area to gauge people's views on the appointment.
Some Jamaicans have taken an issue with the idea of an army man leading the police force as police commissioner. In fact, from what we've heard, many are still questioning why is it so difficult to find a police commissioner within the police force.
So I don't think it's a real good idea. I mean, why not just get somebody who actually understands the way the whole police force runs and let them be the head of the whole police force?
But I have the problem with Major General and this getting it. It's a soldier, right man, forget the role, brains, have the education, experience and them things there. So I'm here about it still, me feel him are the right man. You see me? Then some other people me hear them talk about, I don't think them can manage it, but Mr. Anderson should. Capable to deal with it.
Others fear that it's not about where the police commissioner was trained or worked, as much as being given a chance to tackle crime without political interference.
Do not put politics in it. Let the man get the chance to do what he have to do and get the job done. Because Jamaica, little Jamaica, come on, man. Our place is, And we're not supposed to have these things going on in Jamaica. Blessed place. So give the man a chance and see what can become the outcome of it.
Nika Lewis, CVM Live.
The Manchester police have indicated that burglary is on the decrease in the parish. Although they have experienced some success in apprehending suspects, they are still experiencing difficulties, as CVM Live's Nicole Wilson reports.
There has been a decrease in the number of reported instances of burglary in the parish of Manchester between 2016 and 2017.
I have looked at the stats of breaking in Manchester. There was 1 year when you had nearly 500 break-ins for the year. Last year we had 280. So we are trending in the correct direction. Point is that there have been worse years.
Superintendent Cameron indicated that a number of individuals have been taken into custody in connection with several break-ins across the parish. However, the police are still asking for the public's help in identifying those they have caught on camera and also to provide information that will lead to their arrest.
Last year alone, we arrested 37 men in this parish for break-ins. 37. And in spite of that, one of them we clearing 27 break-ins on, one of them we clearing 29 break-ins on. And in spite of that, break-ins continue.
The police have also identified ports of entry to the parish which are said to be utilized by migrant criminals.
Migrant criminals coming to the parish through the border of Christiana, Coleville up there, coming from Trelawney. And the two sides in Spalding.
According to Superintendent Cameron, criminals use these routes oftentimes to avoid robust checkpoints set up by police. There are plans to increase police presence in the weak areas that have been identified. Nicoy Wilson, CVM Live.
The Child Protection and Family Services Agency says it remains resolute to the task of safeguarding the nation's children. The ultimate, according to the agency's chief executive officer, is to engender Jamaica that's fit for children. As Carolyn Brown reports, a unity of purpose and commitment from everyone is imperative.
There are children suffering from mental issues directly linked to the trauma they endured during abusive situations. The public health system does not have sufficient facilities, and even with island-wide child guidance clinics, the level of intervention required is not available, which includes screening and assessment.
One of the hardest things in this job we call child protection is when you are faced with a child who, although living before you, have died. They want to check out, they want to give up, they don't want to be here because of what has happened to them.
Despite these scars and the feelings of hopelessness, she says all is not lost for our boys and girls.
We believe that it is possible for us to achieve a child abuse-free society, and we must believe this. This, however, cannot be achieved until each of us recognizes our responsibility to the children of our nation.
In order to address these issues, though, she stresses that we must go back to the root causes and while there reflect on the models of some of the country's women of old.
How is it that Miss Sarah did it, or my mother, Ada from Westmoreland, did it? How is it that they were able to raise 5, 7 children with the outcomes for those children, although we were poor, are so much better than we are seeing now with parents who seemingly have access to a lot of resources. We have to go back to find out, to sit at their feet.
Her comments came as the agency endorsed the recently launched Sarah's Children, an international charitable organization geared toward helping abused children as well as the elderly who are unable to help themselves. Carolyn Brown, CVM Live.
It's time now for regional and international news with our reporter, Nicoy Wilson.
In Grenada, recent tests have shown that a significant amount of oil and gas has been discovered in Grenada's territorial waters. That's the word from Prime Minister of Grenada, Dr. Keith Mitchell. Speaking at the rally of his ruling New National Party on Sunday ahead of the March 13 election, Dr. Mitchell said the Russian-based Global Petroleum Group had conducted the necessary exploration activities to locate oil and natural gas within the island's territorial waters. In June 2017, the Grenada Parliament approved the Hydrocarbon Exploration Incentive Bill, outlining a package of incentives for oil and gas exploration to any company. This is similar to the recent finding of independent live oil seeps in different sections of Jamaica's oil blocks.
CVM Live, our 90-minute news program. A seminal moment in the nation's education as the sector was crippled this afternoon and this morning as members of the Jamaica Teachers Association made good their threat of industrial action. While the JTA remains silent on the issue, the dialogue is continuing across the country and everybody seems to have varying views. Should the government accede to the request of the teachers, or are the teachers being unreasonable in their rejecting of the offer which has been accepted by some public sector workers? The government and the JTA we're going to welcome our esteemed panel this evening. We have government consultant Mr. Marlon Morgan, no stranger to our viewers.
Thanks,
and for the very first time, Member of Parliament and Opposition Spokesperson Junior on education, Mr. Michael Stewart MP.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening, Ashley. Good evening, Richie. And good evening to your viewers.
About 300 schools have been affected by today's industrial action by the teachers. The teachers are militant. The teachers have made good on their promise. How did we, as a country, arrive at this point in these protracted negotiations between the teachers and the government? Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Ashley. This is unnecessary action or crisis which was brought on by the government. The government seemed to treat the workers of this country in a very high-handed manner when it comes to salary negotiation. This is very symptomatic of the government of the day. This is not the first time that we are seeing this happening. And the teachers are really upset. They have been treated with a lot of disrespect. And they have all right to be militant and to be asking for what they deserve. And the opposition supports them fully.
Marlon, the country is anticipating another 3 days of sick-out within the context that GSAT is next week. School-based assessment tests are due very shortly. What is your view as a government consultant?
And of course, CSEC exams are but weeks away. Some courses have orals beginning in April and then papers commencing in May. So it's a less than ideal situation to be in, to be honest, for all concerned. But programs like this do serve a good purpose because it allows the perspectives to contend. And I like what you said coming into the segment. You posed the question and you really asked, how did we get here? And I mean, we should really spend some time tonight in articulating that. But before we even get there, I think I should acknowledge that our being here as panelists this evening is testament to the sterling effort and sacrifices of our respective teachers. And so I personally owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to the men and women who would have helped to shape my life in terms of being teachers over the years. And against that backdrop, I do sympathize with teachers in terms of how, impecunious their remuneration is, the struggles that they face. But the truth of the matter is we are at a point in the social and economic development of this country where Jamaica has not yet turned the corner, notwithstanding the encouraging signs, notwithstanding the IMF tests, the successive and successful reviews that we have had. We're not out of the woods as a country, and as such, you don't want an egregious rocking of the boat that would essentially bring to naught the tremendous sacrifices that all of us have made in recent times.
We had a Minister of Education on earlier, Senator Will Reid. We posed this question to him, that one of the contentions of the JT and many teachers is that the administration has treated them disrespectfully. And some evidence of that could be seen from when Peter Phillips was Minister of Finance. He had offered them 7% over 2 years, which is 3.5% per year. The offer that this administration has put on the table is 16% over 4 years. That's 4% per annum, which is greater than the offer they accepted back in 2015. Isn't that evidence in itself, on the face of it, of disrespect, as they have cried? That the problem is not necessarily the numbers, but how they feel they have been treated by this administration.
You see, the truth of the matter is we ought not to be having this conversation in isolation of some of the frank realities. Dr. Phillips, when he was finance minister, did articulate publicly that you can't seek to raid an empty cupboard. And that's a profound observation to have made, because in terms of where we are at present, Jamaica is not substantially farther down the wicket in respect of the macroeconomic variables. The government is working assiduously to keep the variables aligned and stable.
But you got to accept a smaller number.
And the key thing now is to articulate the context. So the government is proposing, and some of the viewers would have already heard of this, 16% over 4 years. So that's 5% in the first year, 2% in the second year, by year 3, 4%, and for year 4, 5%. But separate and apart from those nominal amounts, the annual performance-based increments, which is in the order of 2.5% in the case of our teachers, would see them over 4 years taking to themselves some 10%. In the case of police, their performance increment is 3%. I see Mike is shaking his head, but things I deal on this program with the objective reality. It either goes so or it don't go so. And separate and apart from the 16% and the 10% in terms of the annual performance-based increment, there's also the matter of that fundamental and game-changing stimulus that the government crafted, and of of course, rolled out in terms of the tax break.
Michael, come in now. It goes so or it don't go so?
Marlon is putting an argument which is quite erroneous. The teachers of Jamaica have labored long and hard. He speaks about the increment. Teachers get a 2.5% increment at the end of each year. It is not that teachers are going to be getting 10%. It cannot be calculated that way at all. It is disingenuous to be saying that teachers are going to be getting 10% at the end of the period. That is not so.
Why? How come that's not so?
Because the teachers are getting, after they have served for 1 year, they will get a 2.5%.
Is the 2.5% applicable to all teachers, or is it performance-based and only applicable to some teachers?
It is performance-based, and it's applicable to some teachers.
So what about the other teachers, Marlon?
You see, and I host a radio program in the mornings, and I had our esteemed JTA president, Mrs. Warrichers, on the program with us this past Friday, I believe it was. And she spoke of teachers being at the top of their scale, who would have essentially maxed out in terms of the annual performance-based increment, and as such, they will have no additional 2.5%.
Correct.
But there's a degree of disingenuity with an approach like that, because the truth of the matter is, those teachers would accrue onto themselves a certain basket of allowances, not the least of which would be their seniority allowance. But separate and apart from that, we cannot seek to have a discussion, particularly in a democracy, where we try to pinpoint statistical outliers. It's the same thing some people sought to do with the 1.5 tax break. They sought to identify people who would stand to get very little in terms of a return in relation to the tax break. We shouldn't be seeking to identify statistical outliers.
Is the government still having a discussion with the teachers? Are they still negotiating, or are they imposing
the government
on the teachers?
Is imposing, and that is where we find it quite offensive. It's a take it or leave it, and that cannot work at all in a democracy. We are saying that the teachers and government need to get back to the bargaining table. The minister spoke about the 1.5 and has calculated it at 10%. That was in 2016, prior to the elections. Did he make a down payment of 10% for the teachers and the other public sector workers? That cannot be at all. And that cannot be factored in the negotiation at this time.
No, but it comes back to whether something happened or somebody can't be half pregnant.
But we
can't have a half accident. It's either we had an accident at the Montego Bay, the airport roundabout on Saturday morning, or we didn't have an accident.
But we can advance a little bit, because the teachers have, in a sense, accepted the 16%. And what they're actually arguing about is the
software and the book allowance.
How is Audley paying? Audley Shaw paying?
No, but that's what some of the teachers have come on.
The teachers have not accepted that at all. There's a total breakdown. There are 45 points that were presented.
So the sticking point goes beyond the books and software.
Certainly so.
Back to the 16%?
23 of the points were rejected totally by the government. Only 8 were accepted. 14 of them, they have no timeline on it. And so there is a total abandonment of the negotiation. And we are saying that, Marlon, just give me a chance, that you do not negotiate in those ways at all. And you are saying, you're going to be paying whatever percentages is that is due to the teachers at the end of the month. Take it or leave it, you're foisting this on the teachers. That is not how you negotiate at all.
I mean, with the greatest respect, based on its utterances, based on the finance minister's address, in opening the budget debate, based on a press conference he had on Friday, the government has been, for all intents and purposes, and you have seen it manifest, the government has been respectful. The government has recognized that it is in, not even the government alone, Jamaica is in a relatively precarious spot, in the sense that we still have a relatively fragile economic reform program.
But Mike is saying that the teachers have not accepted the 16%.
And I'm happy you brought me back to that, because Mike has said the government, the teachers have presented a wage claim of some 40-odd points. I believe it is 20-odd points to be accurate. Now, Mike Stewart knows that in no negotiation, any particular group negotiating with government has had all the points in terms of its wage claim accepted or agreed on by its negotiating partner. That is its employer, government in this case. So he knows that fully well. So it's a degree of disingenuity to suggest that the government has not accepted some points. The substantive reality here is that inflation is modest in the country. We have interest rates that are relatively low, so much so that teachers can now go out and access mortgages at more competitive interest rates.
Be paying the first tranche, 5% to the teachers by the end of the month?
I'll tell you why. And Mike should perhaps help with the public education.
Without concluding the negotiations.
First of all, the first things first, the finance minister and your viewers ought to be mindful of this. Was elsewhere in media this morning on a radio station speaking to this precise issue, because it is an issue to which the nation's teachers have taken umbrage. And the point is this.
And the police.
The government is still at the table with our teachers, but it has decided to go ahead with effecting payments for the retroactive sums for April 1, 2017 through to March 31, 2018, because if those retroactive sums are not paid in this current financial year, which is about to come to an end in a matter of a couple of weeks' time, you find that in the upcoming financial year, that is financial year 2018-2019, you're not going to be able to make the payment.
It is only the retroactive sums which the ministry will
Because effectively that would reflect the new rates, the rates for that would have taken effect April 1. The point I'm making, Mikey, if the people don't get the money as at March or by March, meaning in this pay cycle for March coming, they won't be able to get it in financial year 2018-2019 because of the fiscal rules in terms of the fiscal responsibility laws and, of course, the IMF stipulations in respect of the wage to GDP ratio. So it is not arbitrarily, that's a substantive point.
Yes.
It's not arbitrarily that government has acted.
We have been this road before. And we are saying that the teachers have not accepted anything at all. There has been no signing on any dotted line. How can you impose something that they have not accepted?
It's not an imposition, it's just a practical and a common sense thing to do.
On the teachers.
No, but actually,
and that is where the teachers have found it, offensive and disrespectful.
I don't want us to move from the point, because you have to understand, it is a practical and a common sense approach. Because, Richie, hold on it. If you think of money, there's a thing called the time value of money. If the government can't pay the money in the financial year 18-19, and you have to wait until 19-20 to get the money, those sums would have lost considerable value over the intervening period. So that would be a disservice to our nation's teachers.
That. And the teachers, this is not the first time we're negotiating.
Mikey,
and the teachers have
this is just one payment, though, Mikey. This does not affect the negotiation. How does that affect the negotiation?
The teachers are prepared to wait until the negotiation is completed.
Yeah, but if this payment is not being, if they can't offer this payment again, if they wait beyond the end of this
financial year,
exactly.
And I'm saying that
how does that affect the negotiation?
It could have been avoided. The teachers are willing to go back to the table. And when the minister spoke about it in Parliament on Thursday, we had the entire weekend for the negotiation to take place.
Yeah, but again, come back. How does making this payment within this pay cycle affect the negotiation going forward?
It will affect it. The teachers have not signed on any dotted line.
So you think if they accept this payment, they have to accept the negotiation?
Certainly so.
Richard, that's
a total breakdown.
But Mikey, that suggestion flies in the face of the reality. You know why? The government of Jamaica and successive finance ministers have been in negotiations with groups before, meaning in the past. Omar Davies, Peter Phillips, Audley Shaw. We have had negotiations in the past. The idea is this. Finance ministers, notwithstanding a deal yet to be signed off on, have gone ahead and effected payments in respect of new rates. That is something that is that you can check for yourself. It is something that has happened. It's a practice.
Marlon,
so notwithstanding an agreement yet to be arrived at, new rates have actually been made good on in terms of actual payments.
Is the ministry still at the negotiation table?
But absolutely. The teachers, so when last we asked Georgia War Richards, the teachers would have written to the finance ministry, I believe it was last Monday, and they are awaiting a response from the ministry. But notwithstanding that, the government is imploring teachers to understand the context within which we're operating. It is not that our nation's teachers aren't deserving of more. I find that this discussion comes down on the one hand about what our teachers deserve and what their financial realities are. All of us sympathize with those realities, but the truth is you have to reconcile at the same time what the employer's ability to pay is.
That is a good point. A lot of persons are saying, including the G2K, they released a statement, saying that the teachers should really put the interests of the country and the interests of the students at this time ahead of their own wage negotiations.
The teachers have suffered long and hard. They have heard that every time a negotiation comes around, that they must hold strain, they have to pull their belt. The government can't find the money. They have found money for debushing, they have found money for by-elections by the millions. And so if there is a will, and it can be found, and the teachers have labored long and hard, they have made tremendous sacrifice in this country. And I believe that the teachers should be given an opportunity, should be looked at favorable as it relates to their payment. It cannot be underscored that every time the teachers are to be getting something, that you hear that there is an IMF agreement, there is something in the mix, and if an election is called or some program comes up that the government wants to push or the voice of the population, the money is found.
On the subject
Marlon,
of giving
final,
the teacher something.
Final 30 seconds to you.
On the subject and note of giving the teacher something, Mike is particularly familiar with an administration that effected tax measures after tax measures and had nothing in respect of give back. We have substantially increased the income tax threshold, interest rates are low, the inflation is low, and of course the economy is growing, and we are poised for even greater takeoff in respect of being able to grow the pie to pay teachers better.
We have to conclude.
Because that's where we have to get to.
But is the consensus here that we're all expecting the government to go back to the table with the teachers to settle?
This can't be the end of the matter because the teachers are not at a point of
Mr.
agreement.
Mike Stewart, happy to have you as usual on CVM Live on this very important matter of national priority, the teachers. We anticipate 2 more days of strike. Our panelists have said